Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam amma ba'da. Habita fillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hayyakum Allah. As'al Allah Kareem Rabbil Arsh al-Azim in yatawallana fi dunya wal akhirah. May Allah tabarak wa ta'ala protect us all, preserve us all, forgive us all, guide us all, and have mercy upon our souls. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us with those things which please Him and protect us from those things which displease Him. May Allah tabarak wa ta'ala bless us with istiqamah and being better slaves of His. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. Ahabita fillah. So as the title mentions, to talk a little bit about some qawaid, some foundation principles with regards to refuting the people of bid'ah and desires. This has a relevance, otherwise I wouldn't be speaking about it. For one, first and foremost, we need to know not everyone should be involved in refutations, plain and simple. And this should be reserved for the students of knowledge, and even probably not all of them. And those people who have knowledge of these areas and issues and the mashayikh. And unfortunately, because the level of fitna and because there is so much involving, as one of our listeners, viewers just mentioned in the last stream about the Sa'afika and Sheikh Rabi said and this and that and the other. And I'm just wondering why you would involve yourself in that. But I know there's peer pressure. I know some of those communities are very involved and the people want you to take a mowqif and a position about so many issues that are a lot of times are way above our level, way out of our league, we have nothing to do with us and our communities and our issues. So anyhow, it's important because it is such a time of great fitna, and it's just the bottom line. A lot of these issues are out there. It's good to know some principles with regards to these concepts that when you are refuting, and these are good reminders for us, especially those who do refutations or feel the need to do a refutation or what have you, that you should have some sort of foundation and principles to follow. And so we're going to talk about, and a lot of these principles are derived from the beautiful refutations of Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, rahmatullahi alayhi, rahmatan wasiya, because of his nature, his ways, and his methodology of dealing with Ahl-Bid'a wal ahwa, that he was, even because of his level of knowledge, and that he even commanded respect from a lot of his enemies. A lot of them, not all of them, but you know, his level of knowledge and his insight and knowledge of their doubts and of their sects and their madhabs and their philosophy. You know, he was well versed, and that shows us the importance of knowledge. It shows us the importance of knowledge when speaking about whatever issue that may be. So with regards to this issue, we're just going to talk about some qawaid, some principles with regards to dealing with, or, you know, really refuting Ahl-Bid'a, some important things. And these principles translate to even more than doing refutations. These are important Islamic principles. So the first principle with regards to doing and involving oneself in refutations, again, this is really for the students of knowledge and people involved in this. But just for the sake of our knowledge, in case you ever get involved in those kind of things, or at least it will give you tools that when you see people making refutations, you will have something to be able to put their refutation on the scale. Because you will find that many people, subhanAllah, their refutations do not fit with any kind of qawaid and usul, but rather they are reckless and they are dangerous and they are based on desires. So the first qaida, ahabatu fillah, is a hadr min al-hawa. So when making refutations, refuting someone, refuting a sect, refuting a group, that it should be that the refutation should be refuting the desires, refuting desires, because the desires and the opinions are some of the assass of people going astray. Has to do with their, they have a view and an opinion which contradicts the Quran and the Sunnah, the Quran or the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or the minhaj or the methodology of the Salaf as-Salih. So it shows us the dangers of following our desires and the dangers of also refuting people based on desires. How many refutations have you seen? And the people are not really saying anything substantially. And all they're doing is making inferences and claims and this and that and the other. And you can see that it's personal. Or you can see that they're just helping and supporting their group and their party. They're not giving you anything substantial of why this individual is wrong. And I gave an example yesterday when we were talking about, when I did a video about Sheikh Abu Usama, and I mentioned the first time I had heard negative about him, which I didn't really know much about him anyway back then. And the brothers were saying, well, he rides a motorcycle and motorcycle jacket and he's rough and he uses this language and on the basketball court, so you can see that right there, aslan, is a way of hawa. You can see that right off the get-go, what they were talking about was hawa. They did not give anything Islamically substantial to be able to take him off the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, to be able to negate all the good works he was doing, especially back then. He was translating for a lot of ulama. He was the one go-between. He was, he's from America, but he's in the UK. That shows you how popular and how well known in the da'wah and how useful in his khidmah, his service to the da'wah to Ahl Sunnah in the West. So you could see that the refutations against him for some of the people was based on desires. It wasn't based on anything substantial and good. I need to make sure my phone doesn't die, so give me a second. I need to find my charger. So that's very important to be cautious of the various ways of hawa, how they can deceive you and how that can destroy your reputations. That's why it's a very scary thing. And a lot of times, even if I think about refuting someone who's from Ahl-Bid'a, that a lot of times I'm mutaraddid. I go back and forth because I want to make sure, am I doing this because it's my desires? Am I doing this for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, defending the deen of Allah? Is it about me? Is it about this? This is one of the reasons why I didn't speak about and go into what the guy Haji said about me, because I knew it was going to be hawa. At the time, I was like, man, this guy's put a Superman cape on me and stuff like this. I gotta go in, and do something about this guy. But then I said, no, am I doing this for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Am I defending the deen of Allah? So I found that it was better for me to hold back, keep teaching, not focus on the desires of this individual, because I already said I did one speech and that was sufficient. That was sufficient because what I talked about was the Quran and the Sunnah. There's no way you can refute that. Even when you bring statements of the Salaf, they have to be measured on the Quran and the Sunnah. That's what dalil and evidence is in Islam. So I knew that there was nothing else that needed to be said. They can make whatever they want. They can say he won. They can say this. Those things are things that deal with hawa. If you want it to do with the deen of Allah, it's got to be something that you are getting right with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with. So that's very important when it comes to refuting and a rad and stuff like this, is that it's for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These things and what we've seen many times is people in their desires. And that's why I didn't want to, the brother, may Allah bless us in him, who talked about the sa'afata. What you'll find with a lot of that, it was hawa. A lot was hawa. There was some ilm, but there was a lot of desires. And don't think because a scholar is a scholar that they're not human anymore and that they can't fall to sometimes following just their opinion and their desires. Again, we have to look at everyone's speech, whether it's Sheikh Rabi', whether it's Sheikh Muhammad bin Hadi, whether it's Sheikh Ibrahim Rahili, whether it's Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, whoever it is, their speech has to be put on the scale of the Quran and the Sunnah. Okay? No one's speech is perfect and infallible and stuff. As Imam Malik mentioned, Kullu yusibu yukhti ila sahiba hadha qabr. He said everyone gets things correct and gets things incorrect except for the inhabitant of that grave. But some of the people believe, individuals, like even some of our mashayikh, they don't realize that some of the people actually, they have almost given a level of worship. I don't want to say they directly worship, but they might, and they might not even realize it. Just like the people of bid'ah and desires. What do the extreme Sufis do? They believe their sheikhs are ma'soom, that they're perfect and that they are infallible, some of them. And what do the Rafida believe? They believe their imams are infallible, that they are, that they have the power to give harm and so forth. So there are people, even who claim to be from Ahl Sunnah, who might hold their scholar or certain scholars to the level almost of that. They're on that scale. They're in a dangerous precedence. So if it's not shirk, they're still in sin, because you cannot I can't say, even if I love Sheikh Rabi and I have his books, I can't say, well, Sheikh Rabi said, and that's it. That's like wahi. No, it's not. It's absolutely not. Wahi is qala Allah, qala Rasul. We look at the Sheikh's speech to see how it fits on that scale. We look at the Sheikh Imam Fawzan, who, these are imams greater than that. Imam Fawzan, Imam Baz, Imam Muqbil, Imam Al-Albani. Their speech and actions and statements are on the scale of the book and the Sunnah. So it's not about our desires. I can't say my Sheikh said it. That's the end of the story. We got to act upon that. No, we don't worship our Sheikhs. So that's something we have to be very careful when it comes to Hoa. That's also a type of Hoa and Taqleed and so forth. The second principle, which is very important when refuting and anything, and in dealing with the people of Bid'ah even. Al-Adl or Al-Adl mal muwafiq wal mukhalif. That you are just with the person who differs with you and with the person who agrees with you. That means you're always just. So, for example, when I gave the example of Haji, I have to be just. I can't lie on Haji. I can't say some names I would want to say from Jahiliyyah about Haji. I can't say I want to show up in the UK and with the mask on and come outside of his masjid and tie him up around the neck and take him out and behind. I can't say that about Haji. I may kind of want to, but that's Hoa. So we got to stop that. We got to leave that for Jahiliyyah. We can't go out like that. We can't let the desires, and we have to be just. So I can't lie on him. This is another way that many of the people have violated these principles. How many people are unjust? How many people they lie? They will deliberately lie about someone they differ with. They will say anything because it's for them. It's about winning an argument. It's about following their desires. It's about their group. It's about being accepted by a certain group of brothers or sisters. There's all kind of reasons people deviate and are unjust to people. But you're going to be responsible to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If I am unjust to Yasir Adi, I'm going to be responsible. If I'm unjust to Hamza Yusuf, I'm going to be held responsible. Even if I claim those guys are Mubtadi'ah, I have to use their speech, and I have to, and we'll get into some of those other principles, but you have to be just, no lying. You can't lie. And even you shouldn't exaggerate. You should be as exact, and you can see that in the Rudud Ilmi. I mean, if you look at Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, and just even some of our contemporary scholars that deal with this, you'll see that they're just, and they give you principles, and they give you usul, and they give you, let me give you one example, and people might have what they have. But for example, Sheikh Ibrahim Rahili, Hafidhullah Ta'ala. When I looked at some of the refutations against him, I saw how unjust some of the people were. And I knew some of the things that people were saying were just not true, because I was, I'm a student, so I know. And I was there. I've heard from his tongue. I know what he believes in some of those issues, but they made false claims. So they weren't just with him. And I saw that the way he dealt with them was with justice. He refuted Sheikh Ubaid. He refuted Muhammad bin Hadi. He refuted them with ilm. I love Sheikh Ibrahim. You know, I learned so much from him because he strove his best. He's a human. He makes mistakes. Yusibu yukhti, but he was very just. He still talked to them very respectfully. Sheikh Ubaid, his elder, you know, but he said, Sheikh, you know, hey, you made a mistake here. And let's taharral mas'ala. You know, no, this is not what I said. This is, you know, he dealt with it ilmi, knowledge based. So you have to be just with those people who disagree with you and those people who agree with you. The third, underneath that, there's two things we want to talk about, two principles. First, and this is a good reminder for me because even I recently had a good discussion with some brothers about a particular individual, and I made a statement, and this was in a private group, and then they reminded me, you know, and I would say corrected me, even though I still think they were wrong. But I'm not going to go and get too depth because it's a waste of time. The truth will come out about certain individuals. But they defended a person who I believe is a mubtadi'ah. So we talked and we discussed. But what they said in general was haqq. You know, these are other tulab al-ilm, students of knowledge in Yemen. And what they said was truthful about qawa'id. They gave qawa'id and principles, which I know, but they were good reminders. You remind dhikr tanfa al-mu'mineen. The reminder, the reminder benefits the believer. Okay, so we're supposed to remind each other. So anyhow, you have to be just with those people who agree with you and those people who disagree. Under that, that means also, this is a lot of people don't understand this. قبول الحق من كل من قاله. Wow. Very important. You have to accept the truth from anyone who says it. If Hamza Yusuf says it, if his Sheikh Jeffrey says it, if the Pope says it, and it's the truth, you have to accept it. You can't say, you can't refute the truth because of the qa'id, because of the person who said it. That's very important because that means that you are adhering yourself to the haqq. That's what your whole goal should be in refuting and whatever it is. It's about the haqq. It's about preserving the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not about preserving your honor and this and that and the other, or you can preserve your honor and your dignity. There's nothing wrong with that. But anyway, when you're refuting and when you're involved in these things, it's about the haqq. It's about the truth. So if a mubtadi'ah says the truth, you can't refute the truth. You have to accept that truth from him. You refute his batil, his falsehood. Also, and under this is another important point. I mean, we're giving you a very shortened version to summarize. ما كان مشروعا لم يترك لمجرد فعل أهل البدع له. So those things which are aslan from the deen, you cannot leave them just because the people of bid'ah do it. So sometimes you'll find the people of bid'ah, of course, everything they do is not false. If you talk about Ikhwan al-Muslimin, Jama'at al-Tabligh, whoever, even the Shia, everything they do is not false. They do something that people think they're Muslim or what have you, especially if they're in the fold of Islam. We're talking about those that are in the fold of Islam, okay? They have some truth with them, something that they're doing from Islam. There might be many things, but they just deviate in certain usul, in aqidah, or in manhaj, or whatever the case may be. So whatever is legislated, for example, Jama'at al-Tabligh, we can't say, well, the way they do their khuruj and stuff like this is not necessarily mashru'. They make the 40 days and they do this and, and how they figure that out. But the fact that they visit people, they make da'wah in the masjid, they visit brothers who aren't coming in the masjid, those things are mashru'. So we can't refute those things which are legislated from the deen. We should be visiting our brothers. We should be giving speeches in the masjid and calling people to tawheed and the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We should be doing certain things. So we don't reject or leave those things which are from the deen that people from Ahl-Bid'a do. Okay, they might do a certain thing. Dhikr, for example, you can't say, well, that I'm not going to do that and you know, make my heart close to Allah because I see some Sufis do that. No, dhikr is azim. It's one of the greatest deeds you can do, and it's legislated from the book and the sunnah. You do that, even if you see some of the people tasawwuf do it, but you don't copy them. You don't do that which is haram and that which is bid'ah, but you do that which is mashru'. So the point is, I hope you get the point. A last point under that principle, if you will, is adam muqabala al-batil bil-batil. This is so important. We need to get our charger for our computer now because it's about to go. So one of the things that's very important with regards to this is that the fact that you have batil, you cannot repel batil with batil. You can't repel falsehood with falsehood. So for example, a mubtadi'ah lies about you. Then doesn't give you the right to lie about them. A mubtadi'ah distorts a principle in the deen. Doesn't give you the right to respond to them with falsehood and lies and deception. La, you are always restricted by the truth and by that which is good. So that's very important, because what you found from the people of bid'ah in the past, many of the sects, they arose and they would refute other groups based on falsehood. So these what do you call it? The Khawarij versus the Murji'ah. You know, the Murji'ah had their view on Iman, and the Khawarij had their view on Iman. And where they differed, they refuted each other. The Asharis wanted to refute and run away from the Mushabbiha, those people who make a resemblance between Allah and His creation. So they fled from them, which is good. And they refuted them, which is good, but they refuted them with batil. So then they began to make ta'wil of the sifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, running from the concept of tashbih, of making a resemblance. Okay? For those who are familiar, that you understand what I'm talking about. But I don't want to extend the speech about that. But you'll get an understanding if you study the sects in Islam and you know what happened. You know, they would go from one extreme. So those people who affirm the divine attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there are those who made a resemblance to Allah. Ahl Sunnah is in the middle of those two extremes. They affirm what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, but they leave the kayfiyah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We don't know how. The Asharis go further on the scale and they say, no, we're going to change the meaning. We're going to change the meaning of that, because we don't even want to use that same language. Well, Allah used the language, but the Asharis wanted to make ta'wil of it because of their aql. So you can see how you don't want to refute falsehood with falsehood. That's the point. Also, with this qaida, which is very important, and you find that, you know, Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah mentions these principles and also practice them, is that you also do not want to, it's very important, and this has to do with being truthful, Adam nasb al-ashya la yaqul biha ilayhi. So it's very important that you do not associate something to someone which he didn't say. So we can't lie on people. And that's why it's so important to affirm what was said. And I also have to check myself, and it's very important. This goes into the next, excuse me, the next principle, which is at-tatabbut. So important. And we have an adam of this. We have a lack of this. At-tatabbut fi naql an al-mubtadi'ah. This is jiddan muhim. This is so important that when you are speaking about someone, or anything, relaying whatever you heard, you need to make a tathabbut. You need to affirm what was said. You cannot just say anything about someone or just because you heard it. You have to check before you speak about it. You can't say, Yasir Qadi said this, and he might have never even said that. Or he may have said something, but it didn't even mean that at all. You have to make tathabbut. You have to affirm and check and be careful, so that way you're not guilty of lying or distorting what a person said, even if they're a mubtadi'ah or whoever, or they could be a person from Ahl Sunnah that you're refuting. Doesn't matter. The whole point is you must make tathabbut. You must make sure of what you're saying, that it's true. Also, with regards to the concept of dealing with Ahl-Bid'a, and also from the principles of refuting the mubtadi'ah, one of the means is also that the mashru'iyyat al-hajr, that it is also legislated from the deen to make hajr, to boycott individuals if necessary. But that should not be the first thing that people do. And again, I'm talking to you, but really this is for the students of knowledge and people who are studying, that they should be, these are principles for them, that they should be careful about quickly cutting people off and these other principles, because they're the ones involved in refutations. It shouldn't be the general brothers and sisters in the deen or beginning students of knowledge, as Imam Fawzan mentions and details very nicely. And so it's very important. And it's very important for us to know that this is all mashru'. This is all legislated to warn against bid'ah, to warn against mubtadi'ah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, في كتاب الكريم, فَلْيَحْذَرَ الَّذِينَ يُخَالِفُونَ عَنْ أَمْرِهِ أَنْ تُصِيبُهُمْ فِتْنَةٌ أَوْ يُصِيبُهُمْ عَذَابٌ عَلِيمٌ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, في كتابه المبين, then warn against those who yukhalifuna, that they differ with his affair, meaning the affair of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the book and the sunnah, Islam. They differ with the truth. And warn them that what will befall them is fitna, is a trial, test between them. Or yusibuhum adhabun alim, or a painful torment. So they may be tested in the dunya with a trial between them. They fitna, they break from the Muslims. There's discord with them, or all kind of test in their deen and in their dunya, and they may be punished in the hereafter as well. Of course, if you're a cause of fitna and you are distorting the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his deen, making bid'ah. So it's so important to know, habitabillah, that these things are mashru'. It's legislated. We don't go to an extreme and say, no, there's no more refutations, there's no more we need to just unite and this and that and the other. No, we do need to unite, but it has to be based on the book and the sunnah and the understanding of the Salaf as-Salih. And we need to return back to the book and the sunnah. Those are some of the principles, and there's lots and lots of beautiful evidence about this. What I want to mention also, maybe perhaps a few quotes, we'll keep it very short, is for example, Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, about the first principle, about warning against the hawa, warning against the desires. He said, وَصَاحِبَ الْهَوَى يُعْمِيهِ الْهَوَى وَيُسُمُّهُ فَلَا يَسْتَحْذِرْ مَا لِلَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ فِي ذَلِكَ وَلَا يَطْلَبُهُ ولا يرضى لرضاء الله ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم ولا يغضب إذا حصل ما يغضب له بهوى ويكون مع ذلك معه شبه دين. So Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, he mentions that the people of desires, that the person of desires, that they are blinded from their desires. And they become deaf due to their desires. SubhanAllah, think how many people you can give dawah about something, but they just don't want to hear it. because it goes against their desires. It goes against what their teacher said, even if their teachers are teaching them something not based on the book and the sunnah. But it's their desires. They're attached to them. They're attached to personalities. Those guys said they're Sa'afika, so I'm attached to it. I don't even know what it means. I don't know what the controversy is, but I believe it with my heart, and I make taqleed based on your opinion and based on their opinion that they projected upon you. But you don't even know what's going on. You're just like a ping pong. And then you may not even leave that when the truth comes, if you are sahib hawa, if you're a person of desires. And that's what Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah is talking about, that the person of desires, they're blinded and they're deaf by their thing. And that they are not attentive to what Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said and have requested of them. And they're not pleased with what Allah is pleased with, or seeking the pleasure of Allah wa rasulihi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they don't become angry except with those things which go against their desires. Meaning it's not like the deen is their focal point. Their focal point is their desires. So this is what Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah is talking about, and talking about the people of doubt and shubha, and that it's a very dangerous place to be in, you know. And many of the people of desires make taqdeem ash-shar'. Ahl Sunnah, they make taqdeem ash-shar' ala hawa wa ra'i. Ahl Sunnah, they give precedence to the Sharia, to Islam, over their desires and over their opinions. And that is so important to keep that in your portfolio. That you are making taqdeem ash-shar'. You are giving precedence to the Sharia over your opinions and your desires, especially when we're talking about things about the deen. And this is what keeps the people of desires, misguided, is because they do bil-aks. Their opinion and their hawa takes precedence over the deen and the shara. This is also one of the causes for the division of the believers, is taking the desires over and hawa, people's opinions, over the shara. And this causes the iftiraq, the divisions. As the Prophet ﷺ said, افترقت اليهود على 71 فرقة وافترقت النصارى على 72 فرقة وستفترق هذه أمة على 73 فرقة كلها في النار إلا واحدة. The Prophet ﷺ said the Jews will break into 71 sects, Christians 72 sects, my ummah into 73 sects, all of them in the fire except one. And he was asked, who are they, Ya Rasulullah? He said, those who are upon what I'm upon and my companions al-yawm. So it lets us know that it's about the deen, and the divisions come when we begin to divide, especially based on desires, by going against the shar', by differing with the amrillah wa rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And there's so much nusus, so many ayat that show this. And another aspect of this hawa is that you'll find that the mubtadi'un, the people of desires, however they may, doesn't matter their name, what they call themselves, but if they fit that criterion of being the people of mubtadi'a, being people of desires and hawa, you'll find that they yata'asabuna li tawaifihim. They will blindly show prejudice to their group. That's very dangerous. If ever you have a group of brothers and sisters and you blindly hold allegiance to them and you articulate that, that's a very dangerous thing. Your allegiance should be to the madhab of Ahl Sunnah. So whoever is on the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, who's ever following the manhaj as-salaf as-salih, ridwanullahi alayhim, which means that they're following the book and the Sunnah, then That's what your allegiance to. Your allegiance is to Allah and His Messenger. It's not to individuals and groups. So if the noble brothers or any other brothers or sisters want you to take a position on something, and you don't even know about the issue, you right there, you're getting an insight. You're getting insight into those individuals, that they are actually following a way of the people of desires, because they want you to blindly follow them. They want you to not question what they're doing. You may ask a question, well, why is this? Why is so-and-so off the sunnah? Why is this? I like so-and-so. I listen to him. No, he's a mubtadi'ah. Sheikh so-and-so said. No dalil, no nothing. And you just accept that for everything. Okay, there's going to be a level of, obviously, people you trust, you're going to take their views. Okay, but you have to begin, as you gain more knowledge, to be able to look at things yourself, because you're going to find many things that people are saying. The Prophet ﷺ said, وَمَنْ يَعِيشْ مِنْكُمْ بَعْدِي فَسَيَرَى اخْتِلَافًا كَثِيرًا. Whoever lives after me will see many differences. How many differences do we see? Look at these differences. Some of these differences we never could imagine. Sheikh Muhammad bin Hadi, as the person mentioned, Sheikh Muhammad bin Hadi and Sheikh Rabi splitting. Before them, Sheikh Fali and Sheikh, and those other mashayikh. The fitna that happened in Yemen between mashayikh. Those things we could have never imagined. A lot of these mashayikh were once together, and some of them have known one another since primary school. 60 years, 70, 80 years, they knew each other. And they died. One of them died, and both parties really hated each other and were refuting each other until the last breath. What did that do for the deen, and was that on the haqq? Obviously, both of them are not on the haqq. And you've got to look, and when you look at some of those refutations, you see there's a lot of hawa too. It's not a way you want to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you want to be very careful of blindly following individuals and groups and being blindly prejudiced. For example, if someone says to me, and it's a sheikh I love, they say Sheikh Salih bin Fawzan says, okay, if it's an issue of fatwa or ijtihad, okay, and it's something that I don't have any knowledge about, we accept it. That imam is thiqa indana. He's a great imam. We love him. And he's known for his taqwa and his deen and his knowledge. But that doesn't mean everything he says that you're going to blindly follow, and that is a hujjah. We can't say, what's the dalil? Sheikh Salih bin Fawzan said, that's the dalil. No, that's not dalil. We may trust him, we may respect him, but maybe in this issue, there could be a mas'ala yukhtifi. We're not talking about, so anyway, the point is to be careful about these concepts of just blind following, making blind taqleed and blind ta'assub, the blind prejudice. Someone gives you an ayat and then you say, Sheikh so-and-so said. No, we can't. I've been in the room and I've listened to certain mashayikh of mine that I love and respect, but I knew he was wrong in his fatwa. He made a fatwa there on the phone and about a particular issue, and I was like, no, that's against all the dalil. I love the sheikh, but the sheikh yukhti fi hada. He made a mistake, but I didn't run and make a refutation or think that I was something. But again, you have to be careful, because this is your deen, and we're not ordered to blindly follow individuals and people and personalities. So it's very important to be careful, because that's what the people of desires do. They follow. Imam so-and-so said, I said, well, Imam Al-Albani said that hadith, brother, is fabricated. And this was a guy, a hardcore Tablighi, Deobandi. And he said, brother, I don't take from modern day scholars. Whoa, okay. This is a man from Ahl-Hadith who made a judgment. You just threw out a fabricated hadith. I mean, fabricated. We didn't say it was weak. We said the imam yahkum annahu, that it's fabricated. SubhanAllah. But no, he, because of his ta'assub, he sees, he has a right. It doesn't matter. It's in his book. His jama'ah is built upon that hadith. We got to, we take that. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what comes other than anything that contradicts that. No, we're not accepting it. We are on this. We have to be very careful. That is something, it's very, very careful to, it's very, very important that we always are open to the haqq, okay? And that we're not blind following, even if it comes from some of our beloved scholars and students of knowledge or whatever. And this is a very important statement that Shaykh al-Islam, he mentions. He says, فَإِنَّ أَكْثَرَهُمْ, and he's talking about Ahl-Bid'a, قَدْ صَارَ لَهُمْ فِي ذَلِكَ هَوَى أَنْ يَنْتَصِرْ جَاءَهُمْ أو رِيَاسَتُهُمْ وَمَا نُسِبَ إِلَيْهِمْ لَا يَقْصِدُونَ أَن تَكُونَ كَلِمَةُ اللَّهِ عُلْيَا. And then he goes on to mention so many other things. So, and that they make al-wala wal-bara based upon their desires and their views. So he says most of the people of desires, that their hawa has led them, that they only seek to raise their own status or their, their honor or their position and what is associated with them. They do not intend that the word of Allah be raised the most high. That's not their intent. Their intent is to make their organization big. Their intent is to make sure they're the leaders of the masjid still, that they're the sheikh in resident. They don't want to lose their job. That's what their concern is. It's not about the truth and having the truth come out and what's going to be best for the Muslims. But their thing is about supporting their desires, their position. We want to be known as the Salafees in the West. We want to be known as, all the Salafi organizations need to come under us. We want to be known as the main Jama'ah. We are Jama'at Tabligh. We are Ikhwan Muslimin. You need to be on our program. We are the Haqq. We are Daesh or ISIS. You need to make hijrah to us, or else you need to do evil acts in the place that you exist to show your allegiance to us. It's not about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for aktharahum. And that's a sign of the people of bid'ah desires. Wanting, craving, holding on to positions and status over raising up the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Very scary and dangerous. And there's so much to be said about this issue. But I think we'll keep it short, keep it there. Because we talked about the main principles. The rest of this text is, mashallah, it's so very good. It has just so many lovely examples. It's a very good piece of research, if you will. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Almighty, to accept our good and forgive our evil. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad. If there's any questions, we'll try to deal with a few questions and then. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Those parties have no benefit. What is the ruling of someone who works for or works with Maghribi Institute or Yaqeen Institute without clarifying the harm that the others have done, but remain silent about it? We can't make rulings on general rulings like this. This is a very, I know everybody wants a ruling for something. What's the ruling for drinking vanilla French chocolate creamer that comes from Safeway or comes from Albertsons? But, that's not really something you can, for one, we can't do that. We're not qualified to make fatwa like that. Secondly, you can't really say what's the ruling. Some people, they work for dawah organizations for various reasons, even if the dawah organizations are not on the sunnah. Okay, and I'm not necessarily saying about Maghribi Institute. I don't know enough about them. I've made criticisms in the past of their entertainment, and I think they have some mulahadat. But, as far as going into depth and stuff, I can't really say much about them. But the point is that when it comes to, there's various reasons people work for dawah organizations. So, for example, think about this. If you were trained as a student of knowledge, you've devoted your whole life, graduates from the Jamia and different stuff, bachelor's, master's, PhD. Some of the people, like the sheikh I was mentioning, he's devoted his life after his graduation. He, came back to Seattle, I think, and then he went to Vietnam or somewhere and gave dawah for many years. His life has been dawah. And he is very valuable in that role. He should not be working at FedEx or UPS or as an Uber driver or something. Everything is by the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But his majal should be dawah. Okay? So here you have an organization that will support him. So where his life is dawah. Now he's the imam, a local imam there, outside of Seattle. And he's still doing khair. He's well respected. He leads Eid prayers for thousands of Muslims. He's well respected in the general, around the world he's well respected, but especially in Washington State and other states. In Canada, he goes around the world. So he's able to function in his role. That's his role, and that's what he's good at. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has favored him with that. So there perhaps is a much greater maslahah, even if he's with an organization that might have certain issues, that he is in a role where he can do what he does best, which is call to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and teach the book and the sunnah of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam without any compromise. He can teach Tawheed, call to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, teaching people, calling people. And honestly, I have never sat in the man's khutbah except that I gained benefit. And when I talk to other brothers that I know and love and have known for years, they say the same. I've never sat in that man's khutbah except that I learned something new or was reminded. And when I sit there, I'm always, his khutbahs are always beautiful. I always benefit. And that's over years. So if you see something like that, you definitely should not write off the person that is giving massive benefit. They're not compromising their deen. There may be certain things. Is it better that you work at Walmart and you can't do dawah? And maybe you studied many years where you could be benefiting the people, but some organizations that have question marks are going to hire you, give you a lifestyle to support your dawah and to be able to do what you do. But instead you chose, no, I'm going to keep my believing, you're keeping your dignity or whatever, even if they're not asking you to compromise and you're able to affect them in a positive way. That is it better for you to work at Walmart and maybe just stop dawah and live a regular life? Or is it better to be able to take what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has provided for you? That's just the reality. We don't have big Salafi organizations and stuff like that, or much to support. You can't expect people, so everyone else can go overseas and study, the Sufis and this and that and the other and whatever, and have massive support when they come back, whole communities, taking care of them. But you don't want that for Ahl Sunnah. You want Ahl Sunnah to be homeless and just accept anything and not take care of their family. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. It's just not the reality. So those are unfortunate tensions that you find. And likewise with the issue with Sheikh Tahir, that you've got to look at, I'm sure he's being compensated well. And he is a man, he's well educated. He's not, we had this discussion in Medina some certain discussions, and I won't talk about them. Those are private discussions. But also, you got to think this man, he's not just a bachelor's degree like your average talib al-ilm that came out of Jamia Islamiyya that spent 6 years or so. This man spent like 20 years in Medina with the mashayikh in a level of scholarship. He did not only the master's program, he did the PhD program. He didn't pay for it. They paid for him. He is a man who has great manzil and knowledge and is able, and he's in a position where he can do what he does best, which is teach. Would you prefer somebody like that? Someone like that shouldn't necessarily, and that definitely was not his objective and goal, is to come back and just be an imam and go through that. We need people in other levels and levels of scholarship and so forth. So people are going to say what they say and what have you. But the only thing that I know is the man is still teaching the book and the sunnah. He's teaching the books of Ahl-Sunnati wal Jama'ah. He teaches outside of that organization that he's a part of. And in that organization, doesn't mean it's going to change. It's going to be a big Salafi organization or whatever. But if he's able to make a positive impact and contribution, alhamdulillah, have a khair. Move the people away from the bid'ah and things that they're on to something better. So this is what we hope. And it can't be according to your schedule that you say it's got to be done in 1 month or 6 months or whatever. It's just not how it works in reality. So people are going to say what they say. And the man is, you know, his rizq and his everything is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there are whole communities that are benefiting from him immensely. So I don't know. If you don't want to benefit, don't listen. That's what I would say about it. Because those are just the reality, unfortunately. We don't have that infrastructure. And that's a very difficult situation. You come back and you want to be a part of dawah, but there isn't any support. There's nowhere for you to go. And sometimes the only doors that are open are people you don't want to work with. So what do? Do you not work with them? That is an option. And the reality is you may not be able to do any dawah because you're busy just living, you know, trying to survive. So those are real issues that I think a lot of the communities will have to work through, because I know a lot of people who've disappeared, who are students of knowledge. How many over the years from the UK and America that I've, you know, in Yemen, from France, whole armies of brothers from France. I remember in Dar al-Hadith and Sheher, the French from the West were the biggest group. And then there was a few sprinkling of brothers from the UK, and there was our American group, and one from Canada. I mean, you know, we're all the people now, you know. A lot of people are just living. They're just surviving, even though they had some years studying. Not everyone was going to come back and teach anyway, but still the reality is if there's no support, what do you expect? And if someone does a high level, you know, I wouldn't expect, if I had devoted, I've devoted a lot of my life, but that was my pleasure. And I'm sure that was Sheikh Tahir's pleasure too. But, you know, he sacrificed a lot. He's going to come out and do something that he is hopefully respected and compensated with. He's not going to be just in a masjid doing a dars and delivering pizza or something. You know, this man has done scholarship. He should be in a role doing scholarship. So it is what it is. My name is Muhammad. I sent you a request. I don't like to do a whole bunch of friend requests, because how many people send friend? I got hundreds of friend requests from people. And I really don't like to, you know, some people, they just say hi. They don't even give a salam. Some people say salam alaikum. I mean, I'd spend all my days on Facebook if I was responding and involved in that, you know. So I don't like to, if someone wants to listen to lectures that I'm doing, I put them out on Facebook. But I'm not going to be friends with the whole dunya, you know, personal messages and stuff. No one has time for that. If you have a question, most of the people, they send it through on my YouTube page. Either, and if it's a personal question, they will send it by the email, to the email. And that's probably the best way. And once I get active with my website, that'll be another way, and probably a better way. So it won't go to my personal email. It'll just go there if someone has a question. So that is the way to do it right now. Go greenkhalid@gmail.com. I was finding in an Aqidah book of Imam by Shaykh al-Islam, caught my attention. I will start reading it. Good. It's an excellent book. The Ash'aris also make their lay people go do tafweed, which is another nonsensical concept based on their desires. I asked a Muslim, do you believe that there is ijma concerning the issue of khuruj? He became silent, but his friends don't believe there is. How should I view him? That it's not really important. It's more important because it's more important to just know the aqidah of and the madhab of Ahl Sunnah. And more importantly is knowing the dalil. What does the dalil say? Because when it gets to in-depth masail with that, all of that is ijtihad of the ulama. It's ijtihad of the ulama. In the beginning, these issues didn't need to be, or, you know, this is just the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They were written about at a certain time. So in those initial events, when some of the people, the takfiris, use as a means for saying, hey, there's no ijma, or there's no this, there's no that. This is before those principles were codified, because they didn't need to be. They didn't need to be. Basically, it was understood. Qala Allah, qala Rasul. So the Sahaba knew this, the Tabi'een. But some, during the time of Hajjaj, some rebelled, and they were not looked at favorably by their counterparts. That was not legitimate. That was their ijtihad, and they're rewarded because they were some of the most honorable. You know, they were closest. They were from the Salaf that did that. They were wrong, though. They were wrong. These are mistakes. So we don't use mistakes as dalil, even if a great imam or a'imma, some imams. So after that time, it became codified. If you look at those early Aqidah books, and you look at the latter Aqidah books, and you look at the latter Aqidah books, you'll see all the great imams saying ijma, saying this. So basically, it's a process. That's a process of fiqh, is that these masail became codified. What you see from the people of shubha, the people of doubt, is you'll see they'll take examples, and they'll take examples of, this is exactly what one of those guys is doing. You see him in all kind of issues, talking about istighatha, you know, making, seeking the help from other than Allah, or tabarak, seeking the blessings of the dead and the blessings of your sheikh and stuff like this. You see them, you can almost say these are ra'i shad. These are rare, rejected opinions, especially in later days. But even if we have great imams that take a view, that doesn't change. We don't say there's a difference between Ahl Sunnah. No, we say that they're wrong. They're going against what the dalil is saying. The preponderance of the dalil is saying this. And then later, a lot of those issues, especially when the issue of khuruj, it became codified, meaning it became a staple. Look at all of those early books. Go to Sharh Sunnah Imam Bahari, Sharh Sunnah Imam Muzani, Usul Sunnah Imam Ahmed, Aqidat Tahawiyya Imam Tahawi, Aqidat Wasatiyya Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, wa kathir, many books in between them. And what will you see? You'll see they all said listening and hearing and obeying and making jihad behind the Muslim ruler, even if he's a fasik, even if he's wicked, and so forth. We don't make khuruj. You see that. So it became codified. And the only ones who differed at that stage would be the Khawarij and, people who make khuruj for other reasons than Aqidah, who are oppressed and they make khuruj. So those issues, a lot of those issues were developing. And what you have from the people of Shadh, some of the people of Bid'ah in contemporary times, they're cut and pasters, as we said yesterday. And so they go back, they dig. Look at this. We have an example here. Imam so-and-so said this. Imam so-and-so said, see, we told you the Salafees said this. No, it's not the Salafees. Who? Go to Imam Tahawi. Go to Imam Babahari, go to Imam Muzani. And those are all three different schools of thought as far as fiqh. Go to Imam Kathir, Imam Qayrawani, Maliki. So I just named all four schools of thought. A'imma Kathira, who nakala ijma' on this issue. Why? Because it wasn't the fact that some go against it, but we're talking about what were the Sahaba on, and then what became codified. So a lot of masail, as they develop, you saw that they became issues of the people of deviance. For example, a khufain, wearing your khufs, that this is aslan an issue of fiqh. Okay? But why do we find that in many of the books of Aqidah? For a couple of reasons. Number one is that issue is it became a sign of Ahl Sunnah, meaning the people of the Sunnah wore khufs and wiped over their khufs. And the only ones who differed over that were the people of deviancy. Okay? And also, for another reason, is that a lot of the early scholars, like, especially those books in Aqidah that we find, Usul al-Sunnah, Shar al-Sunnah, As-Sunnah, all of these classical books, when they talked about the Sunnah, they weren't referring to it as we talk about it. As some of the fuqaha, they talk about it as mustahab, being recommended, as a ruling, as a hukum. But sunnah to them meant the whole deen. It meant everything. So that's another reason why you find the issue of khuffain, for example, in Shar Sunnah, or in other books of Aqidah. Because the only ones who began to differ with regards to those khuffain were really the Rafida, Shia, about wiping over the khufs. So then it became a sign of Ahl Sunnah. And it had the alaka, or the relationship, with Aqidah then, because they believe in impermissible, Ahl-Bid'a. And Ahl Sunnah believes it is permissible, and it's something to do, and it support the ahadith, Ahl Hadith. So you get some insight, hopefully, about some of those issues. Sheikh Usama Utaybi said Yasir Qadi is a zindiq. A zindiq, a heretic, that means that basically it's like a type of takfir. Okay? So probably if someone wanted to they would have to ask the Sheikh specifically, Sheikh, what do you mean? Do you mean he has left Islam for these reasons and so forth? So who knows what question the people posed about Yasir Qadi and what they said and so forth. But I wouldn't run around carrying that hukum saying, yeah, Yasir Qadi's a zindiq, he's a kafir or something like this. No, you want to be careful. Have some wara, have some fearfulness. His reckoning is with Allah. We know he's a mubtadi'ah. We know he's on the danger. He's on the fence. And we leave that to ulama. That's why Sheikh Usama Utaybi made that hukum, So, and that's from the Sheikh's ijtihad, from what he heard. He is making a ruling based on, because he's not known as a takfiri, hopefully based on, he's looking at the conditions of takfir, he's looking at the wabid of takfir, and he's looking at the mu'anid, the things that prevent takfir. So it's very, I don't know the details of that and what, so, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us and all of them, Ameen. Concerning refuting the actions of the ruler, can we insinuate that we're speaking about the certain person? Whoops. Or must we just refute the action without speaking or insinuate about the ruler? Those are weird philosophical kind of questions, sort of. Just don't talk about the rulers. It's just that simple. Tell me one benefit of you talking about what the mistakes of the leader in Saudi or even the mistakes of the Taliban or whoever is a ruler, an Islamic ruler. There needs to be maslaha. If they have taken your property or something like this, you're going to see things and see oppression and see sins and things that are open and so forth. But you have to look at what is the maslaha when you speak out of your mouth. That's really what it comes down to when it comes to the deen in general. What is the benefit? Because what it does, for example, when I would come back from Saudi, and every time, especially these last times too, and with the change in leadership and the things going on, all kind of people, some practicing, some not practicing. Oh, yeah, you're back from Saudi. Man, things have changed. None of them have been to Saudi in years. Okay, boy, things have changed. Yeah, things have changed. I've been there. I was watching and I was feeling the changes. But almost like, and I would always say to them, I say, yeah, things have changed and there's this and there's this. But I say, really, it's still by far the best place that I can see in the world to be as far as a Muslim, as far as a practicing Muslim. It's a place that still safeguards the Aqidah. There's still the ulama teaching. There's still Mecca and Medina. There's still, the safety and security that you experience there. There's still so many fawaid. So with even the changes and the things, yeah, 50 Cent was there. Yes, this was that. Yes, this and that and the other. It's still so far better than all your alternatives. So I don't know what else to say. That's what I would say to people, What minhaj are the real Taliban upon? You probably have to ask the Taliban, really. But from what we know about the Taliban in the past is generally, as one of the mashayikh just recently was talking about it and said they're Naqshbandi. So they might be from kind of a Naqshbandi order. We know that they have tasawwuf. We know that this has been their usul predominantly, even during the time when bin Laden was there, and so forth. And you would have other foreign fighters coming from Saudi and those places who are not on the same minhaj, but really the Taliban as a group, and even what the reports we're getting now, that they do not want Salafees at all. They call them Wahhabis. They're not going to be allowed to teach. They will, have written this down. So they are not going to be open to Ahl Sunnah having to be doing to teach and stuff like that and have an influence on the society, that it's absolutely prohibited. This is the things that I'm reading. I've seen some documents that are circulating that supposedly are written by Taliban spokesmen or whoever, people in their new government, and also some students of knowledge from Afghanistan who are from there, and they know, and they're students of knowledge, and they have been reporting to some of the scholars in Saudi, some of the mashayikh. So this is something which has kind of been known as far as that. So regardless if they are Deobandi or Naqshbandi or whatever they are, whatever Sufi order or whatever, and their influences, more than likely they're not going to accept Salafis, Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah and their teachings. And even with that, though, they still are going to be, or are the leaders of that country. And still with that, they still have a manzil that we cannot, you can't sit and just talk about them and, belittle the leadership, okay? Because that would be hypocritical according to those qawaid and usul of Ahl Sunnah that we've been taught and that we see in the books of the Salaf, that even if a leader is a wicked fajr, he's still a leader. We don't rebel, so we don't encourage anybody to rebel. They will be, and maybe are, the legitimate leaders now. And, may Allah guide them, because there's many of the leaders around the world. Most of the Muslim rulers are not on the Sunnah. Some of them are big Ikhwan Muslimin supporters and extreme Sufis. Some of them, Allah knows best about their Islam. All of that is that's between them and Allah, and it's also for the ulama to decide and to make those judgments and rulings. So this is really kind of the situation. As far as what we know about the Taliban, we'll see in the days to come what's really going on there, and may Allah guide us in them. think Salafi nowadays are too fanatical towards their teachers and mashayikh rather than going back to the Salaf to the point where it's hurting the dawah? No, I don't think that at all. I think that there are some people who are hizbis who claim Salafiyah, and there are some people who make mistakes in that. But as far as when you say, do you think Salafis? No, because I know so many Salafis that are not like that. I know way too many Salafis that are not. I know a lot of students of knowledge and mashayikh. No, they're not. They are on the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. They love their mashayikh. They refer to the book and the sunnah. They are not fanatical at all. So the people who are fanatical, that means that they have tajawuz al-had. They've went beyond what they're supposed to be. So there are people who claim Salafiyah who do that, but that doesn't represent. I can't say, well, there's an African-American who was a serial killer. So do you think that African-American Salafi Muslims are kind of inclined towards serial killers? No, no. You understand? So no one in a group of few people are not representative towards of a dawah or what have you. Again, you have to look at what the dawah, who are representatives of the dawah. When we say our representatives, as far as living, would be the great scholars. And that doesn't mean mistakes of the scholars, but it means what the scholars are upon from the book and the sunnah. Okay, so that's what we make our judgments based upon. And when we look at individuals, we see how they're measuring up. For example, I may praise a brother or a sheikh or a thing. That doesn't mean he's infallible. That doesn't mean I agree with everything he does. And what it means is that I believe he's on the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and he makes mistakes and he gets things correct, but he's still on the usul of Ahl Sunnah. He's still from Ahl Sunnah. He's still Salafi. He's still adhering to the book and the Sunnah and the method of the Salaf. Okay, it doesn't mean you're giving a person a tazkiyah that they're any and everything, and that you have to follow them in everything they say and you do everything. No. So it's very important. A lot of people don't distinguish that. And even Tulab al-Ilm, I've had some students of knowledge mention to me, graduates and stuff, do you think Salafi? And I said, no, I don't, because we know too many Salafis like yourself who are not like that. So why do we have to redefine anything? We don't have to give anything to anybody. Call to the book and the sunnah and the understanding of the Salaf. You don't have to change our thing because some rotten apples or somebody who's a hizbi is claiming to be Salafi, or I saw a Salafi do this. Well, is he really Salafi? And on top of that, that shows a naqs, a shortcoming in his character, in his Islam, in his iman. He's not representative of what Salafis believe and what Salafis practice. So that's very important to know and understand, not to make those kind of generalization. No, we don't have to apologize to anybody and say everybody's fanatical or we need to redefine things. No, I don't agree with anybody who says that kind of stuff. Alhamdulillah, my ulama are not like that. We don't have to apologize to anybody. I see that they adhere to the book and the sunnah and the madhab of the salaf. I listen to them, and there's so many of them, alhamdulillah, in Yemen and Saudi and around the world, but especially that's where I am familiar with. And alhamdulillah, you see them still continuing on the same minhaj, doing the same positive, affecting people around the world with khair, calling people to the book, calling people to the sunnah, clarifying the minhaj of the salaf, practicing the da'wah to Ahl Sunnah. Alhamdulillah, until you die. That's it. So as far as Salafis nowadays, no. Hizbis nowadays, yes. But that's not a characteristic or a trait of Ahl Sunnah and Salafis. What do you think? Something else. What do you think of the possibility to make hijrah to the Islamic Emirate? I think I've already said that. And I talked, I don't know if you're the same guy who asked this yesterday, because someone asked about this. So I said, and you said Emiriki. So if you are a revert, I would say that would probably be a disaster for your deen, even if it becomes stable, because as I said, the reports we're getting and what we know from the history of the Taliban is that they are a Sufi, they come from a Sufi movement generally. They are maybe Naqshbandi, as some say they are, and you could talk to Afghani students of knowledge and mashayikh who would know even intricately because they've lived there and others. But that they have this, and they are writing this. It's not just like, we heard somebody say. These things are in writing that are circulating. Salafis will not be allowed to teach under our new government. Okay, so they are very clear, and that's been well known anyway. So would I advise someone from America, possibly African American? No, those guys might You know, the reality, if you travel around the world, you see the Muslims are sick with racism. The Muslims are sick with all kinds of stuff. They might just shoot you, especially if you're a Salafi. You know, they might just say, oh, yeah, hey, I came for Hijrah. Blow! You blow your head off. You know, that may happen. I can't say. I'm just giving you a hypothetical, more extreme thing. But the reality is you will not be allowed to practice. You may go to a masjid and you're moving your finger or something, that people will grab your finger. And maybe even worse than that, because there is a serious hatred. So, no, I would definitely not advise that. Why would you want to go to, you know, just because you think Islam is in many places, and it may not be in the picture. I don't know if your picture of Islam is just a bunch of people with big beards and guns. I don't know what that is, but that's what a lot of the youth really in the past, and why they were so attracted to ISIS and stuff. They thought that these are guys are going to practice the pure Islam. No, those guys will cut your head off and make takfir to you in a minute, especially if you have any doubts. And come on, man, no. Some of those are the worst places to go sometimes, especially when there's widespread ignorance and poverty. Those are not good, and racism. Do you think Afghanis are going to like you if you're especially a black person? I don't think there's any special. I mean, if you are, I don't know. You could be white. I don't know what color you are, and I'm not. But I'm just saying, you have to really think about whenever you're going to go somewhere. You don't go just naive. You need to go and know something about the culture, something about the people. Who are these people I'm going to be around? What, gain knowledge about the circumstance, especially you want to make hijrah, you want to live there and stuff like that. Is that possible? Is it safe for me and my family? Is it, and only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. My question was about the Muslim speaker being asked about a basic Aqidah question like khuruj, but they refuse to answer what they actually believe. Is this a sign he could be an innovator? No, I wouldn't, he may not want to answer. It could be a sign of many things. He may not want to answer. He may think this is way above the head of the people. He may not be well grounded in the issue. It depends on what you call as basic. Is that a basic issue? It's maybe that's something well understood for people who have studied the minhaj of the Salaf, and studied those classical texts. But for other people, that's not going to be a basic issue for your average Muslim, for a lot of jama'at, a lot of groups and stuff. So, no, be careful about rushing to make a hukum on someone. Sometimes people are quiet. I don't always answer. Sometimes I may answer a question on one stream, another time I may not. For time and for also just tired of reiterating it, or it could be a many reasons, or I feel it's above the level of the people, or it requires major research, or there's a million different reasons you could not answer something. So it's not like they didn't answer about Tawheed or something, So we have to be careful of that. Don't rush to make the people off the Sunnah, and be careful. Well, I would say in general, just don't worry about, unless you're from Afghanistan and you're planning on going home or something, you can make dua for them, make dua for the Taliban. But I don't know about worrying and rushing just because it's all in the media. You're going to forget in 1 month. You won't even be thinking about Afghanistan. It's all in the media. Okay. So I think you need to focus on those priorities, what's most important for you, and so forth. What is the response to those making claims MIAW? I guess that's Muhammad Ibn Abdul Wahhab. I wouldn't make those kind of MIAW, these kind of things. Just an early Najdi's being takfir. There are massive books written about that. So it's like something you don't just spit out. It's not like a 5-minute answer. There's books written about this and dealing with that. So if you're really concerned about that and you want to know, in my research, my master's degree, you can get it there. But then there's also other books, and especially in Arabic, but in English, I'm sure there's some things translated that will give you some clarity about the issue, if that is something which is real concern to you. Okay. Saudi has imprisoned so many scholars in Ahl-Sunnah. How do we respond to those that refuse to go to the Hajj because of the Saudi government? Don't respond to them. Let them not go. It's better for them not to go than maybe other people who want to go to Hajj can go. Okay. Good. Don't go. That's between you and Allah. Are you partnered with Ustad Abdurrahman? No. I really love whoever is in power, it's Allah's reaction. Can we watch a niqabi who teaches Islam? There's barely anyone with the right aqidah. If you're a man, why would you? There's so many brothers that can teach you aqidah. Now, if you're a sister, okay, yeah, if that's, if the sister is competent and she's teaching, she's studied, alhamdulillah, this might be khair. But for the men, no, they shouldn't. Why? What, you can't find any male speakers? That doesn't even make sense. I don't think there's any branch of knowledge that isn't being taught by someone from Ahl Sunnah that's a male and what have you, that you can't find, Can I test people with Muhammad ibn Wahhab or Fawzan or Al-Albani? No, don't do that. As the scholars mentioned, so many details about that, and some of them, like Imam Barbadi mentioned, al-imtihan, or not imtihan, what do you call it? I forgot what we call it in Arabic. But anyway, testing the people that it's a bid'ah. Don't get so caught up in that stuff. This stuff, if it comes down to there's a necessity, for example, you're going to take knowledge from someone. He's going to teach you, but just going around testing the people, no. But if there's a necessity, for example, you are afraid, this teacher said he's going to teach a certain book, or you're going to start a dars with him in Aqidah. You can ask him, Sheikh, Ustad, what do you think about, something like this? So you can learn from that, because you are going to take knowledge from that person. But to go around just testing the people, no, you can't. Don't do that. Even in Urdu, come on, there's enough scholars. Sheikh Wasi Al-Abbas, I think, does some teaching, and how many mashayikh that are in Pakistan and in India or what have you, or that teach in Urdu, kathir. So there's no need to do that. Yeah, again, if it's a necessity, but again, determining that necessity, yeah, that's if maybe you're going to take knowledge from the person and you're concerned about that, okay, because they could be on anything, and they could be a takfiri, they could be Naqshbandi, they could be whatever. So you may want to know, you do want to know who you're taking knowledge from. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the Almighty to accept our good and forgive our evil. Sallallahu alaihi wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.